I ran out of insulin while my blood sugars were skyrocketing towards and likely past 250 milligrams per deciliter while traveling to a remote location in Hawaii for a jungle tour. This was not planned, as you can tell. I did survive, and thankfully that was not the end all of our vacation. The day continued. We had fun, and I am back now from Hawaii. However, that situation did give me a unique experience to try out a new insulin that I had never tried before in my entire life out of pure desperation. If you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Van de Vecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist living with type 1 diabetes, and I pride myself typically in my willingness to experiment with my blood sugars. However, this experiment was not planned nor ideal, but I do have some lessons for you that I hope you enjoy.
I've spent the last 10 years pushing the limits while identifying trends and patterns in my type 1 diabetes management. Follow along as I learn, apply, and share the fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle strategies that I've learned from diabetes experts around the world. The real question is, how can we live fearlessly with diabetes while maintaining stable blood sugars? This podcast is here to give you the answer. My name is Matt Van de Vecht, head coach and co-founder of FTF Warrior, and welcome to Pardon My Pancreas.
The backstory goes like this. We had lunch. We are heading out for a boat tour up the river in actually towards this amazing like rainforest grotto type area. And my wife and I were on vacation in Hawaii. Well, and my daughter, of course, Brooklyn was there too. But the three of us were joining the rest of my family for this cruise thing. And it was our idea, so we said, hey, we're paying for everything. We'd like to treat you guys. And on the way there, things went south quickly for my blood sugars. It's a 45-minute drive to the middle of nowhere, and then from the middle of nowhere, you take a boat up a river further into the middle of nowhere to get to this really cool grotto cave kind of thing. And it's a really cool lookout. There's nothing anywhere nearby. All you hear are the sounds of the forest and the animals and the water. It's beautiful. However, on the way there, my blood sugars were not cooperating. After lunch, they were skyrocketing. And I'm watching as I'm giving corrections in the car proactively, right? I'm like, oh no, 180, 200, 220. I'm like, correct, just adding insulin. As I'm giving these corrections, I realize I don't have enough insulin left to continue giving these corrections and make it back home in time. In fact, we're supposed to have dinner and Hawaiian shave ice while we're out there. I'm like, I don't even have enough insulin to give corrections for this high blood sugar. See, the issue is that my initial calculation was I have enough basal insulin and enough to get me through dinner, and then I'll change my site when I get home. But see, I didn't anticipate lunch not going well and shooting me to a 250 blood sugar. So unfortunately, I had to give a bunch of corrections, and in doing so, it was just not enough insulin for me to make it through this whole trip. And I told my wife, I was like, how long is this boat tour? And she was like, oh, about 2 hours. Crap. What? I don't think I have enough insulin to make it through. And my brother-in-law was like, do you want to turn around? And I was like, no, I'm not going to ruin the whole trip for all you guys because we were just barely going to get there on time. And I was like, I can't, because then nobody gets to go on this boat tour. I'll figure something out, right? And there was a few different lessons learned, but one of them was I'm sitting at 250. I can't give any more corrections because I need my basal insulin for the next 4 or 5 hours, right? And I'm looking out the window thinking to myself, well, I've survived a 250 before. So if 250 is as bad as it gets and it stays at 250 for the next couple hours, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? And for me, that's a lot because when I get above 160, I get angry. And so I'm sitting at like 240 or something and it's heading upwards. And I'm just like, you know what? And I'm looking out at the Hawaiian population. I'm like, statistically speaking, there's a lot of Hawaiians who don't even know they have diabetes. They're probably at 250 right now, and they're getting along just fine, right? It's not healthy, it's not good, but like they're okay. So I thought, at the very least, since there might be nothing that I can do about this, what if I just chose to accept it and move on? What if I chose to enjoy this boat cruise and continue on? And that was a really hard thing for me to do, but that was lesson number one, which was I can be angry at the situation, But if there's literally nothing I can do about it, why would I continue to be angry, right? And so that for me was just eye-opening, where I was like, you know what? Okay, put a smile on. Why not enjoy it? It's gonna be at 250 whether you're angry or not, so just be happy. Enjoy the boat ride, enjoy the cruise. You don't get to eat dinner with everybody because you won't have any insulin, right? But be happy. Yeah, and I think it's called the Serenity Prayer comes to mind. It's like, Lord, give me the what is it? The wisdom to know the things that I can't change. You know, we're gonna Google it right now. We're gonna Google it live. Serenity Prayer. Okay. So the Serenity Prayer is, all right, so the Serenity Prayer, took me a second to find that, is to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So for me, a big part of this was recognizing I had no hope at changing this and to accept it. And so in that moment, I just felt this breath of fresh air where I was like, whew, you know, I don't have to stress about this because there's nothing I can do. So I was able to enjoy that moment. And then for whatever reason, it clicked in my head and I was like, oh, my sister's diabetic and she's in the other car, right? So I texted my sister. I was like, hey, what are the chances? And I was thinking, like, how could I make this work? I don't have insulin. She has insulin in her insulin pump. So I was like, what are the chances you have extra insulin in your insulin pump cartridge that I could use? So my thought was, while it would show as insulin on board on her pump that she would not have delivered to herself, I was hoping I could disconnect my pump, connect hers, have her deliver a dose of her pump's insulin into me, and then give her her pump back, and I would just resume with the basal insulin that I still had. In other words, I would use her insulin pump for a correction for myself, and then plug mine back in, and then everybody's happy, right? And she loses a unit or two or whatever, right? And she said yes, and then my mom texted back actually and said, your sister has a vial of insulin. Does that help? And I said, hold on a sec. So I looked at my backpack, and while I didn't take insulin with me, I did have an emergency stash, complete set, cartridge, needle, pen, tubing, all the stuff for a full site change that I had put in my backpack a year ago. So I pulled it out, and I'm looking at expiration dates, and I'm like, you know what? Don't look at those. It's probably expired. But it's plastic, who cares? And so I'm thinking in desperation, yes, I would love to use that vial of insulin. So we get there and I'm like, thank you so much. I pull out the insulin. I'm getting ready to poke everything in and get it going. And I noticed the label looks a little different. And I was like, what? Hold on a second. That's not Humalog. And she's like, no. What do you mean? And I'm like, I take Humalog. What's this? And I roll it around and it's Novolog. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Most of you guys know Humalog, Novolog are very similar, but there are some differences, right? It is technically different. So a little doubt creeps into my head and I'm like, you're really gonna try a new medication as you're getting on a boat to go in a river to the middle of nowhere? Are you insane, right? And there's just a little bit of anxiety creeping up and I'm like, what choice do I have, right? Let's do it. And so in famous Matt fashion, if you don't know, I experiment on everything. So I quick did a little Google search on what to expect. Looks like Novolog works slightly faster than Humalog. The search that I came up with showed about 5 to 10 minutes faster is this formulation. I keep looking off screen because I'm watching my daughter. She is adjusting with the jet lag and now probably going to wake up soon from her nap. Anyways, looking at this difference, I said that's doable. 5 to 10 minutes faster action, I'll take it. And my sister says that she got switched from Humalog to Novolog because of her insurance. They wouldn't cover Humalog anymore. They were forcing her to change to Novolog a couple of years ago. And I thought, you know what? How stupid is it that we don't get a choice in the medication that we take that works best for us? She was forced to switch. That's so dumb. I have so many clients who have, maybe Lantus, they love it, and they're forced to switch to Tresiba, and then it messes everything up. Or the other way around, right? They have Tresiba, they love it, they are forced to switch to Lantus. That one doesn't work for them. Why can't we just use what's working best for us, right? It drives me insane. There's stuff that I can't even get access to. It's ridiculous. But that's a different rant. For today, I did end up using this site. I'll even put a picture on screen. I changed my site on a boat in the middle of a forest jungle type place, and the boat's rickety and moving around a bunch. But I got it plugged in, gave a correction, and came crashing down. Loved it. Oh my gosh, was so grateful. Had some snacks in my backpack, of course, just in case it was a little too much, because it is different. And ultimately, watch over the next few days, because when I experiment, I love watching the details to see what is different, to try and document these pieces, both for myself, but also for my clients. Type 1 diabetes, we are a living science experiment. Always. Like, it doesn't matter if you accept it or don't, you are a science experiment. Your doctors don't even know your precise basal bolus correction factor. They tell you, hey, try a 1-to-10 ratio for your insulin to carbs and we'll see how it goes. Let me know, right? Because it's an experiment. That's besides the point. We actually teach some really detailed frameworks on how to experiment safely, because if you're going to experiment, you might as well try to mitigate the risks, right? And avoid potential pitfalls or danger. So we teach our clients how to experiment safely with type 1 diabetes. But that being said, it was really interesting that the knowledge I found online, 5 to 10 minutes faster, wasn't quite accurate for me. Now, granted, I was not testing in isolation. When we do experiment with blood sugars, I highly recommend that we do so in isolation. In other words, the more variables you have at play, the less likely you are to find the true source of blood sugar fluctuation, right? So if I am eating different foods than I typically eat, my workouts are very different, because right now I'm training for more triathlon races. They seem never ending. I think I'm addicted to them. But I'm not training the same level I typically do, because I'm on vacation in Hawaii. I am in a different time zone. Time zones play a big deal in this. Stress level, completely different. No stress virtually until I got the different insulin. So all these different variables, it's hard to say if Novolog was truly different or not. But from what I noticed, it was maybe a couple minutes faster, but really didn't play a big difference in my overall diabetes management. But being open to experimentation, that's the big lesson I want you guys to pull away from this episode, is that whether you like it or not, you are a science experiment as a type 1 diabetic. And if you're able to accept that and embrace it, you end up learning a lot more. Like, that's how I discovered the 80-20 blood sugar formula, which is what I teach my clients, right? For more predictable blood sugars. That's how it was discovered. I experimented every single day for 2 years. 2 years. But because of that, now everything's hunky-dory, it's great. But it's only because I was willing to experiment, document, analyze, and make adjustments as necessary. So when you look at your own blood sugars, I want you to think about that. Just get a mind of curiosity, right? And become the diabetic detective, right? I still gotta make a hat that says that. I think that would be so funny. Gotta put my diabetic detective hat on. But for now, this Renegade Warriors Think Differently hat will do. But that, I would say, is one of the things that has served me best in my journey with type 1 diabetes, is getting curious, experimenting, what works, what doesn't, but making note of that, right? To learn from those experiences so that you can build more of a customized blueprint for you. And that's what we do with our clients as well, is, shorten the gap and help them to reach that end goal a lot faster. What do you want out of life with type 1 diabetes? Do you want to eat more fun foods? Do you want to train for an Ironman? Do you want to play with your kids without going low, right? Like, there's a lot of different angles, but ultimately deciding what you want and then experimenting towards that goal. It's a big part of the game, right? But 2, that whole Serenity Prayer thing, ultimately recognizing when there are no options for you to take action and accept it, where it's like, you know what, if there's nothing I can do, what's the point of me not enjoying this moment? And so for me in the car, at that moment, I thought there was nothing I could do. And I said, you know what, if there's nothing I can do, 250 it is. We're going to sit here for a little while, and I'm still going to be a pleasant person to be around, at least to the best of my abilities. I tend to get a little emotional when my blood sugars are out of range, but to the best of my ability, accept and move on. But also to have the wisdom to recognize when there is something you can do about it, right? So diabetes doesn't have to be the end all to your fun, to your health. Recognizing that blood sugar formulas, for example, can literally change your life completely. the transformation to where you're not restricted because of diabetes, right? Oh, I have to eat this type of food, or oh, I can't go on that hike or that bike ride because of my blood sugars. Instead of asking for permission from your blood sugars or feeling like you have to appease them or do things to support them, you're able to manipulate blood sugars with formulas so that you can do what you want and you force blood sugars to cooperate, right? To where, I mean, I'll put it on screen. We went hiking through the jungle, snorkeling. My wife and I did a few open water swims because I'm helping her train for her first Olympic distance triathlon, which we got coming up in a couple days. I'm super pumped about that. You know, doing all this crazy stuff, completely different dietary shift, eating Hawaiian plate lunches, Hawaiian shave ice, just massive, enjoyable meals. And I think for the, you know, I was going to say, I think, let's just look it up. Let's see what my time and range was for the week, and I'll put it on screen. This is a complete mystery to me right at the moment. So, ooh, baby. All right, here's my phone. 97% time and range. Need I say more? Standard deviation 25. Average glucose 132. Is it perfect? No. But it's pretty close. And I am very happy with that, right? And that I attribute everything to the blood sugar formulas. That's the only reason that that's possible. To go through different time zones, dietary shifts, activity shifts, schedule shifts. I didn't know what was going to happen every day. There was no planning ahead for diabetes. It was eat a meal and then, hey, what are we doing now? Oh, we're going hiking for 3 hours? Okay. You know, like that was it. There was no ability to map out every strategy for the week and plan ahead, which is a very helpful piece to type 1 diabetes. But to be able to live life spontaneously and still maintain 97% time and range, that is what a blood sugar formula does. To be able to experiment with new insulin with relative confidence, right? Knowing that no matter what happens, I can adapt with the formula. To know that if I want to eat a fun dinner, I can. To go get Hawaiian shave ice, which is pure sugar, I can do that too. Have poke bowls, right, with rice. Totally fine. It works. Now, again, I want to reiterate, it's not perfect. It's not 100% time and range with 10 standard deviation, right? But it is the healthiest I've ever been while having the most fun I've ever had. That's the crossover that I think is really important to drive home. It's not just about healthy numbers. That's not the only thing we're after. For years, that's what I thought it was about. I had 100% time and ranges every other day, but I wasn't happy. I was, eating lower carb. I was scared to exercise too hard. I was scared to mess up my eating schedule or bedtime routines or any of that stuff. And it took a toll on my peace of mind. So if you're somebody who does like the idea of healthy and happy, blood sugar formulas is the way to go. It is the only way that I know of that delivers both. We do have a free training, if you haven't seen it yet, that introduces the idea of blood sugar formulas and kind of walks you through what it might look like to start setting up your own, especially in the realm of food and activity. Those are my two favorites. But I would check that out if you haven't yet. That training alone has opened up so many minds. We get emails all the time. Like, Matt, that initial training, I haven't even talked to you yet, but that training completely opened my mind to all the different things that I can do and fix with my blood sugars. Thank you so much, right? So again, if you haven't seen that yet, or if you want to just go watch it again because it's free, you can go to diabetesinaction.com. And the reason we call it that, of course, is that we intend to live with diabetes in action. I don't want to live with diabetes stuck on the couch thinking that this is as good as it gets. I have to restrict the fun foods and I can't work out too hard. Right now I'm training for another half Ironman, and never thought that I'd be doing that. But my last half Ironman race I did with 96% time and range as well. 7 hours of endurance athletics. It was wild. Anyways, we're getting off track. If you want to fix your blood sugars to a degree where you're able to actually enjoy life again, right? And it's not perfect, but to have that happy and healthy crossover with type 1 diabetes, go to diabetesinaction.com, watch the training. Trust me, take some notes, enjoy it. Now, for today's episode, though, I want to make sure I covered all the things on my list. So number one, being open to experimentation. Your life with type 1 diabetes is an experiment, whether you like it or not. So you might as well embrace it, do it safely, right? But recognize that what works for one person doesn't always work for the next. And you are going to have to personalize what you've been taught. The pre-bolus changes person to person, but also day to day for each person. Your insulin to carb ratio, probably different than mine. Your response to going for a walk, different than the next patient of your doctor's, right? Everything needs to be personalized. So in order to get it personalized, you will have to experiment to see what works best for you. So that's number one. Number two, change the things you can and do so. Like, be actionable, take action, commit to that. But if there is something that you absolutely have no power in and cannot change, learn to accept those things. It'll give you peace back in your life. And number three, I would say with the experiment, I was reminded of an important lesson. Be prepared, right? And actually the next day I was on a client call with one of my private T1D clients, and they were sharing how they had some pump issues and they always carry a spare site change and insulin and all that. And I said, wow, that's really cool that you learned that from me, because I didn't even do that. And I found the spare site, but didn't have my insulin. Thankfully, my sister was there and had insulin as well. But being prepared. And so I recommend that my clients check their expiration dates, check their low snacks, check their go bags, we call them, I have a Ziploc that has my site change. I have a glucagon in there. I have my glucometer, just the emergency stuff that you should always have with you just in case your devices fail. If my CGM stops working, I have a glucometer on me 24/7. So I'm good, right? So being prepared, that is the third key for today. And I think a critical component to life with diabetes, because preparation allows us to pivot when those opportunities require it of us. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope that one was helpful. I am back on Humalog now. No big changes that I can tell. So smooth experiment, really. But maybe I will try out some different types of insulin. I know we've got Fiasp, Liamjev, Afrezza that work a lot faster, supposedly, that I haven't tried myself yet. So that'll be something that I look into in the near future. Maybe even some different insulin pumps. So if you've got any experiments you want me to run, feel free to comment those below, and we'll see what comes across my desk, what kind of ideas y'all got. But again, hope this was helpful, and the more prepared you are, the easier it is to pivot, the more your mind is able to adapt to things you can change or can't change, the more peace you'll have, and of course, the more willing you are to experiment, and the more intentional you are with the frameworks that you use for experimentation, the more freedom and flexibility you get with your personalized diabetes plan, your blueprint for success. So if that's something you want some help with, or if you want to just look into what blood sugar formulas might be able to do for you, go to diabetesinaction.com. Check it out. Hope you found this one interesting, helpful, maybe even entertaining in some capacity. Check out the next episode when you get a chance, and I'll see you guys there. Have an amazing rest of your day, and keep up the fight.